top 5 candidates to replace Steve Sarkisian if it were to happen. Guys, I think this is a 5 to 10% chance at most. I do not think this is going to happen. But it was odd that it came out. It was odd that Jimmy Sexton emphatically shot it down. That has never been done by that agency ever.
Any agency, I don't think.
Yeah, exactly. And it's weird that it was the Titans. Why was that thrown out there? So that's the weird thing to me, that a specific job was thrown out there. Yeah, I know that's the only one really open right now, but we all know there's going to be – the Dolphins should be open. It would shock me if they keep their coach. The Bengals could be open. The Browns could be open. There's so many jobs that could be open. I want to know, maybe that was the only reason because it's open, but we'll talk about it. So, Gerald, I'll let you start. Number 5, who's your 5th candidate to take the Texas job if Steve Sarkisian leaves?
Yeah, and I want to say, like I said after the game on Saturday, like if Sark's agents are not actively floating his name out there for things, then they're not doing their jobs, right? Because that's like anybody that knows Sark and knows the landscape knows he wants to, he would entertain any pro option because that's just who he is, right? But are we going like our wish list or like actual candidates? I want to make sure I've got both, but you want to go wish list or actual candidates?
So what I did was I just did it based on like number 5. I'm going to be straight up honest, wish list. Then I have 4 like real candidates. So I kind of did both as well.
Okay, so my wish list candidate number 1 is honestly probably Dan Lanning. My actual number 1 candidate, or I guess we'll go number 5, is Alex Golesh at USF. I really like Alex Golesh. I like his attitude. I think he's a guy who is built to connect with the younger kids that are coming in now. He's kind of a direct, no BS kind of guy, and he's won games. Like he's done really good with the talent at USF. His offensive scheme is pretty significantly different from what Texas is running now. There's a lot more emphasis on the quarterback run. But I like the program he's running. He's got a good thing going at USF. And I think he's going to be a hot candidate for a lot of jobs coming open. So Alex Golesh should be somebody that if the eventuality happens, and that's a realistic candidate, I think, for Texas.
Yeah, I would not hate that at all. I like him a lot. I think it's funny because you can look up a clip of Alex Golesh and Tom Herman shaking hands after the game. They do not like each other. Words were said, let's put it that way. So it'd be kind of funny to hire the guy that Tom Herman hates. And honestly, they kind of run a similar offense. Like they run their, like you said, run their quarterback a lot, kind of want a bruiser at quarterback. So pretty interesting. Number 5 for me is Nick Saban. If the call is not made, it would make no sense to me. You have to make the call. You have to give him a Godfather offer. I think there's honestly 3 jobs he would consider. I'm not saying he takes them. I'm thinking he would pause and be like, and actually think about it. I think Texas is one of those jobs. I think it's Texas, LSU, and Alabama. Obviously, that's not going to happen. But if DeBoer went sour there, 100%, I think he'd go right back if he got a good enough offer. So I think those are the 3 jobs. But I went with Nick Saban for number 5. I'll jump over to my number 4. It's kind of in the same vein as you with Alex Golesh. Will Stein, Oregon. I think he's going to be the next big coordinator hire somewhere. I don't know who's going to give him the opportunity. Honestly, if I'm Penn State, I've heard other names thrown around in their circle. If you can't get a big name, this is the guy I would fall back on. I think he's done a phenomenal job with Oregon. They do not miss a beat offensively. It's been plug and replace there, and they're always in the top 10 in the country. And I think he runs a really good scheme. It's kind of like Sark on steroids. It's a lot of screens, a lot of short passes with an extreme amount of speed on the outside. So I went with Will Stein.
Yeah, and he knows Austin. He knows the area. He knows the recruiting ground. So I think it's not a bad choice as well. My number 4, again, this is probably more pie in the sky. Like Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri, I think is a guy who, and frankly, I'm going to say it, like he knows how to play the NIL game at a level that I think Texas probably needs and wants from a guy who's going to be that. And he is more of a CEO type guy as a head coach. And that's really what it takes to win at this point. Like you don't really need, like my worry about a guy like Will Stein is like, is he going to want to run the offense or is he going to hand it off? Right. Those are the types of questions that I have with a guy like Will Stein, but Eli Drinkwitz very clearly is not that coach. He's really running the CEO type. He seems equipped for this modern era of NIL based kind of personality based fundraising, getting donors involved. And he's done a good job at Missouri, but I think with the resources Texas has, I think he could probably take himself to another level.
I think that's completely fair. I have him a little bit higher. Number 3 for me is Kenny Dillingham. What he's doing at Arizona State, which is literally a broke program, guys. You can look at this. They don't have any money there. He has to have, scrape from the bottom of the barrel, and he was able to get the playoffs and almost beat Texas and put together a team that competes their ass off. Like, they could have gave up in that football game easily. They did not. He talked about bringing physicality back in practices. I like everything I hear from him. I like the product on the field. I think he's a really good coach, and I think he can relate to recruits as well. I think that's a big thing. These younger guys are really good at relating, obviously, being in the same age bracket as some of these guys. So I'm going to go with Kenny Dillingham as my number 3. What about number 3 for you, Gerald?
Well, actually, I had Kenny Dillingham as my number 1. So, like, spoiler alert for that.
Okay.
Kenny Dillingham was the top of my list. My number 3, Willie Fritz at Houston. Willie Fritz is a guy who, again, Houston's clicking along. Willie Fritz has been shown to be a program builder. So I don't know how it vibes with like the need to really just maintain, I think, at Texas. But again, I'm looking at guys who are not necessarily involved in like the day-to-day coaching, but really running the operation, running the organization. And Houston isn't the NIL powerhouse that Texas is, but Houston has judiciously spent their NIL money in key spots to land some guys that they needed to, especially in-state guys. Willie Fritz knows the local coaches. He knows the recruiting grounds. And again, he's been able to use some of that sparing NIL fund that Houston has to be able to bolster the roster in specific spots. So again, a guy like that, given the resources that they have at Texas, they could do some really special things.
No, I completely agree. My only issue with him, a little bit older, but he is a really good football coach. Like, he's gotten Houston off the mat. I bet, I mean, that's like one of the 2 win totals I bet in the Big 12, and it already hit because that's how good of a coach he is. And he's got Connor Wegman playing pretty good football as well. Number 2 for me is Eli Drinkowitz. He is like a nerd. You said it the other day in the post-game press conference, or not post-game press conference, but post-game show. But he's a winner. Like, Missouri's not a good football program, and he consistently wins at a high level. I think they have either the 3rd or 4th most wins in the SEC over the past like 3 years. Like, they're winning at an elite level. And if Bo Prabula doesn't get hurt versus Vandy, they could have easily won that football game and still been in the SEC race in the thick of it. So I like Eli Drinkowitz. I think he's a very good football coach. So I have him number 2.
Yeah, I again, I already said Eli Drinkowitz was higher up or lower on my list than yours, but like, again, I think he'd be a great for their job. My number 2 is Eric Morris, who's at North Texas. Again, this is probably not the trendiest pick, but Eric Morris has things going at North Texas. They've got a good thing going. He's shown that he's a guy who can build a program and maintain a program. He's younger. He's from the state, and I'm not necessarily like big on like that he knows the area, and I've said it a bunch of times, but like there is something to be said about recruiting in Texas and knowing the coaches and the coaches knowing you. That's part of why Tom Herman got the ousters, because he had a bad reputation with a lot of the local coaches. And so a guy who comes in and already has some of that, who's been at a lower level and built things up. I don't really want this to be a guy that doesn't have head coaching experience. I think Power 5 head coaching, maybe not a Power 4 head coaching, is not as important, but somebody who's built a program at any level, like building a program is building a program, and giving them the additional resources that come with Texas, I'd be curious to see what he does.
No, I don't hate that. I wish he could get a mid-tier job and then go to Texas. That's my only thing, because jumping from North Texas to Texas is a big jump. Just, what's on your plate at North Texas compared to Texas. But I would be fine with that to give someone a chance, because he's doing a really good job, and the quarterback they have is a really good player too. So that's going to be interesting, where I don't think either of those guys are going to last very long at North Texas. Number 1 for me, listen, I don't really like this guy, but he's starting to grow on me more and more. And I've said some things like I don't think he's ever going to win a national championship. But I think Lane Kiffin would slide into Steve Sarkisian's spot pretty easily. I really do. And guess what? He's already given up play calling duties. He's already figured that part of the puzzle out, where Sark hasn't. So we wouldn't have to worry about that. The thing he said today, I found hilarious. For anyone that wants to look it up, just look up Lane Kiffin, Brent Venables. Basically, a reporter asked him, people have been saying Oklahoma's a better team. And he went on a rant saying, oh, were they better this year? And then when he talked about when he was an assistant coach at Alabama, oh, were they better back then when he was at Clemson? I guess they've just been better all the time. They just can't beat me. So when he said that, I was like, okay, well, you're saying that. You already hate Oklahoma enough. You can come over and be the head coach at Texas. And I think, he's starting to win some bigger games the last 2 years. He beat Georgia. He beat Oklahoma on the road. We'll see what they do, because they're going to get in the playoffs with the schedule they have. We'll see what happens when they get there, because their offense have been explosive. Guys, Trinidad Chambliss was a Division II last year, and he's balling out in that offense. So it would not hurt me to see Lane Kiffin come to Texas. And I can't believe I'm saying that, because I said 2 to 3 years ago I didn't really like him, but I think he's a good football coach.
Yeah, I mean, he's got that program moving in the right direction. He's got there's this, you could see if you squint, you can see the similarities with Sark. I think the personality difference, that's the one thing I always am curious about with a guy like Lane coming to Austin. There is, again, you can Google all the conversations about his personal life and the personal goings on. And I don't know if that guy could fly in Austin, but from a football coach standpoint, again, he's used to the SEC grind. He's used to dealing with a toxic booster culture at Ole Miss, because like that's something that you're probably gonna have to deal with at Texas as well. So it probably wouldn't be my first choice, but if, again, Lane's going to get a bunch of offers this offseason, and if Texas is open, they probably do make the call. I already told you my number one was Kenny Dillingham. What he has done with what Arizona State is and where they were when he took over is nothing short of a masterclass. Like, they were in the dirt when he got there, and they built him up. He built that program up on evals, on development. And that's been some of the issue with Texas right now is did they miss on some of the evals? Are they self-scouting really well? And one of the things I love about Kenny Dillingham is, like, he seems like a really self-aware guy, and he seems like a guy who's willing to own his stuff, right? You go back and listen to his post game after the playoff game where Texas won. He was like, that's on the coaching. That's not on the players. Like, we didn't coach them to check out of that when the offense checked, right? He owned that loss on himself. And that's the kind of leader that guys want to follow, that people want to play for. And ultimately, I think he's got the personality, and he's got the vibe. He's got that. He's a fast riser at coach. Wherever he lands, he's going to land somewhere in the next couple of years. They're going to be much better for it. And again, if Texas needs a coach, I would love to have Kenny Dillingham.
No, and look what he did with, like, players Texas didn't think was good enough to play for Texas. Prince Dobro played really well in that game for them last year, and he's played pretty well for them this year. Xavier Alford played I think he had an interception in that game, if I'm not mistaken, versus Texas. So, like, he's taking guys that other big-time programs don't want, and they're playing really well when they get there. So, again, he does a really good job of seeing someone that someone else is taking for granted and turning them into a good football player. So, I don't disagree with that. My top four, like, my top five, obviously, I would like them all, but yeah, my top four that are realistic, I would be fine with any of them coming to Texas, giving it a try. Now I'll ask this question. Is there anyone that you could see Texas calling that you just, like, stay away from?
I don't know. Like, Del Conte seems so shrewd that, like, I don't really feel like there's something I'm like, no, don't call him. There's obvious like meme ones, like, don't call Jimbo, right? Like, don't call Jimbo. Don't call Brian Kelly. There's those, like, jokey ones, but I think James Franklin is going to end up at a Power 4 job here pretty quick. I don't know if Austin is the right place for him. That's one that, like, he's going to land somewhere, and it's going to be a pretty decent landing for him. So that's one that I'm like, I wouldn't love, just because I've been close to Penn State fans that have cheered for James Franklin teams, and they're very frustrated. So I can't think of anybody, like, real off the top of my head, though.
No, I'm kind of in the same way. I think Texas, with NIL and everything, I think it would be hard for me to come up with more than a list of 7-8 names that they have to go past, honestly. It would kind of shock me. The guy that I think the time has passed, and I did want him before Sark, and I think he would have taken the job, honestly, if the Jaguars job wasn't offered, was Urban Meyer. I do not want him anymore. I do not think he can work in the modern day of college football, but, I mean, he was fantastic for his day, but I just don't think it would work now.
No, and I also think he's, again, the personal things aside, I think he's probably not a good fit for a lot of reasons.
Yeah. Again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below.